Let us now welcome the next speaker, Professor Haim. For the people who have just joined us, Professor Haim is a professor at the London School of Oriental and African Studies. He is a filmmaker, photographer, activist, and an author. His recent authored book, An Army Like No Other, has been well received due to its role in explaining the role of the Israeli Defense Forces. Professor Haim will give a presentation with the title Zionist Maturation, from Apartheid and Ethnic Cleansing to Genocide and Expulsion. Professor Haim, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and for having this excellent panel. I want to start by saying that I'm an Israeli anti-Zionist and have been since the early 1970s, probably before your parents were born. And this is a position that was very lonely, but is now becoming much more normalized than ever in my lifetime. Huge crowds take over, stations, public places, government offices, and speak in the name of Jewish anti-Zionism in New York, in London, in Brussels, everywhere. So the first thing that I want to say is that Professor Abdul Hamid has made my job easier because he's established quite a lot of the background, and I don't need to go into detail. I don't need to persuade anyone here, I'm sure, that what is happening in Gaza is one of the worst crimes of our lifetime, if not the worst. I don't need to persuade anyone that this is ethnic cleansing and genocide. The brutality of what is happening is quite amazing. It's something that very difficult to find parallels for. So the first thing that we should understand is that this is not a national conflict. This is a settler colonial, asymmetric, West against the rest war on South/East, and it is an Islamophobic attack by the so-called Judeo-Christian Alliance. The Judeo-Christian Alliance is an invention of the West. As you all know, I'm speaking here to academics, that the only Judeo-Christian alliance in history happened under Islam. I'm, of course, relating to the Convivencia in Spain. I'm relating to the life of Palestinians. And Palestinians, I mean Jews, Muslims, and Christians for 2,000 years in Palestine. There was basically a just and peaceful existence for 2,000 years before Zionism. So the Judeo-Christian alliance now is what we see in Gaza. This is what this alliance means. It's an Islamophobic alliance. And I think we are not confused by the Israeli propaganda, I hope, that claims the right for defending itself. Are they defending themselves from babies? Are they defending themselves from civilians? Are they defending themselves even from Hamas? Hamas is a resistance organization. It's not a terror group. It is a resistance organization. And the Palestinians, like any other people under occupation, have the right, and some say the duty, to defend themselves. And the UN Charter not only allows, but agrees that people under occupation have the right to defend themselves with the force of arms. Of course, the arms the Palestinians have are nothing in comparison to the Israeli army. In my recent book, An Army Like No Other, I discussed this, the asymmetry between the two sides. On the one side, you have one of the richest nations, one of the biggest army. Just imagine that the army that Israel has amassed on the borders of Gaza following the 7th of October is 3 times the army of the United Kingdom. United Kingdom, by the way, is 10 times the size of Israel. So, numerically, this army is 30 times bigger than the UK. This is incredible. Now, this army, which is about 500,000 people, is fighting a group of few thousand guerrilla fighters. This army, with the latest jets, with the latest tanks, with the latest drones, with the latest bombs, and so on, you fill in the details, is fighting people who have rifles and RPG rocket launchers. This is what they have, and they don't ride tanks. They rode bicycles and motorbikes into Israel on the 7th of October. So first of all, I want to say that what has happened on the 7th of October is going to be looked at by historians as the most amazing act of national resistance of a group under occupation, not just in our lifetime, but even including centuries earlier. It's very difficult now to fully understand that unless you're an expert, but I think history will find its right place in the history of resistance. That's very important because in all Western countries, we are told that Hamas is a terror group. And as that, you're not allowed to understand it, you're not allowed to study it, you're not allowed to explain it, you're not allowed to support it. I want to say that this is all a very severe attack on rights of all kinds, not just the rights of speech, but the rights of study. You are mainly students, and you can't really study this properly because it's not allowed. Now, I think also that this attack following the 7th of October is the most brutal attack on any indigenous people in modern times. It combines all the war crimes that Professor Abdelhamid has shared with us. It combines both war crimes and crimes against humanity, like genocide. There is no problem proving that this is genocide, and I won't go into it because he has done it already, but half of the many thousands of speeches Israeli politicians made since the 7th of October have claimed that that's what they want to do. They want to destroy anyone in the Gaza Strip because they say every Palestinian in Gaza is Hamas. In some sense, in some important sense, they are right, not about everyone being Hamas, but about people supporting Hamas as their local democratically elected government, which is more that you can say for the Palestinian authority that has not held elections since 2006. So if you are thinking who is representing Palestine, then Hamas is more representative than the Palestinian Authority. This is very interesting to think about. It also is much more representative in terms of defending Palestinians against attacks from Israel. It can't really liberate. It can't liberate the Palestinians because it is not able militarily to defend from Israeli attacks, really. Everyone understands that, but it is resisting. And it also proves something very important, that Israel is unable to defend its own citizens from attacks. This is very interesting because Israel is saying that its credo and its raison d'etre is a safe space for Jews. Well, I want to say that the only, or let's say the most unsafe place for Jews on this planet is life in Israel. There's no doubt, even before 7th of October, that this is the case. And they're not killed because they're Jewish. No, they are killed because they are occupiers, because they are colonialists, because they are settlers, because for 75 years they have done everything in the book and some things that are not in the book against the Palestinians. And the Palestinians' only crime is of being Palestinians, of being the indigenous population of Palestine that Zionism has decided and tries to clear out. So I want to also mention that this is the first genocidal war by a colon against the indigenous nation, which is fully supported, financed, and propagated in modern history by the whole West. This has never happened before. This is an important, an important historical juncture that we cannot forget and should not underestimate. All international laws and rules are broken by Israel, but of course by the West. This is not the first time the West is doing it, but it is the first time that it's doing it during a genocidal war like we have in Gaza. Imagine that in the 2.5 bit years since the war in Ukraine started, less civilians were killed than in the 60 days in Gaza, and you have the measure of this war. Now, I think I want to end the introduction by saying that also before the 7th of October, Palestine's occupation is the longest and bloodiest of modern times, and it is the result of Western support of Zionist apartheid, illegal settlements, illegal ethnic cleansing, occupation, and every other law in the legal book that Israel has broken ever since 1948. So this is not a new thing that started on the 7th of October. All of a sudden, Hamas attacked. There was nothing, no reason, no rationale. Why did they do it? Everything was fine. You know, nothing was fine since 1948 and even before. I want to talk about European, but especially British responsibility for what is happening in Palestine. I'm speaking to you from Britain, so this is an important thing for me to say. But of course, Sweden and all other European countries are on the same side and are supporting genocide in the same way. Not as madly and not as badly as the UK, the US, but I would say they are on the same side of supporting genocide. So we have now 106 years since the Balfour Declaration. And the Balfour Declaration is when a country that did not have any rights over Palestine has promised it to a people that didn't have any rights either. Since then, Israel is only the latest result of this. We had 30 years of British mandates. That the British mandate is actually enabled Zionism to go from a tiny minority, less than 8% of the people of Palestine were Jewish, and none of them were Zionists, to a position where 33% of the people in Palestine were Zionist Jews. Without the British mandate, without the support of the other countries of the West, this could never happen and shouldn't have happened. Now, it's now over 100 years to this. It's 100 years for the British mandate, 106 years for the British Balfour Declaration. It's 75 years to the end of the mandate over Palestine. It's 66 years after the tripartite attack by Britain, France, and Israel on Egypt, trying to hold on to the colonial project of the Suez Canal. When President Nasser nationalized the canal that was built with Egyptian blood. 22,000 Egyptians died building the Suez Canal. And that's more than died in the building of the 3 Giza pyramids 5,000 years ago. So, a modern project using technology has killed more Egyptians than the building of 3 pyramids, the biggest in the world. Now, the bottom line is the partnership between Zionist colonization and the British Empire, and later the French, and later, and talking about now, any country in the West is a sick exhibition of breaking the law and breaking every standard of international organizing principle. I want to take up a claim that Zionism started as a good thing, liberating Jews, and only later became what it is so clearly now. This is a lie. Zionism was a colonial movement from the beginning. Its intentions were colonial, its intentions were genocidal, and its intentions were to clear as many Palestinians, they said all non-Jews, from Palestine. This is a terrible thing that happened to, my parents survived Auschwitz. All the other members of the family died in Auschwitz and in Treblinka. And for someone like me, who grew up in Israel and was educated by this racist society, to see what Israelis are now doing to Palestinians is the most terrible thing that you can imagine. You don't have to be a Palestinian or a Jewish Israeli like me to actually feel that this is a terrible crime. Every one of us living anywhere. And this is reflected by the movement that was built in the last 2 months, which is much more, it's much bigger than what we have done in 20 years of BDS. And Israel is responsible for it, but also the people around the world that are in the millions coming out for freedom of Palestinians between the river and the sea are now doing something that we saw before in the campaign to free South Africa from apartheid, but this is even bigger than the campaign to free South Africa. I think this is incredible and gives us hope. So Zionism was never intended as a mere liberation of Jews. To actually clarify this, I would like to share with you. So these are quotes. If somebody tells you that Zionism started as a really progressive movement of liberating Jews, but then deteriorated. This was written, as you can see at the bottom, on a single day in June 12, 1895. In other words, almost 130 years to the day. And these are quotes from the secret diary of Theodor Herzl. Now, the first one is very insightful. The anti-Semites will become our most dependent friends. The anti-Semitic countries are allies. We want to emigrate as respected people. Now, whatever you think about it, and you know what I think about it, it's despicable. The Jews that were attacked by anti-Zionism saw anti-Semites as their most dependable friends. But he was right about today. Today, the most dependable friends of Israel are countries with high anti-Semitic populations. Now, when we occupy, this is all on the same page, page 88, anything from this one to the bottom one. When we occupy the land, we shall bring immediate benefits to the state that receives us. We must expropriate gently the private property on the estates assigned to us. This is basically ethnic cleansing, yeah? We shall try to spirit the penniless population across the border by procuring employment for it in the transit countries, while denying it any employment in our own country. The property owners will come over to our side. Both the process of expropriation and the removal of the poor must be carried out discreetly and circumspectly. I think you understand why. And then let the owners of immovable property believe that they are cheating us, selling us things for more than they are worth. But we are not going to sell them anything back. 1895. So in the last 180 years, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a settler colonial movement, which is ethnic cleansing and genocidal towards the Palestinian population. And I want to say that the way I see it is that Zionism has now arrived. You know that arrived in the sense that it's understood by anyone that is not a Zionist to be a settler colonial enterprise supported by the British Empire, then the nations of Europe and the nation of South America, North America, and now some others as well, like India, which is the largest friend of Israel and the largest client. Actually, this is not true. Until last month, it was the last client of Israeli arms. Now the greatest client of Israel is Germany, which this year signed a deal which is bigger than what the rest of the world has bought last year from Israel. It's incredible. Now, basically, the conception of Zionism by Herzl was in itself unbelievable, because he's talking about people who are sitting in Europe, and the population of Jews who are not Zionists in Palestine is less than 8%. And he's talking about taking the whole country over. I mean, just think about it. If another population not being in a country is planning to take it over by infiltrating like that, the rest of the world will be up in arms. The last time it happened is in North America in the 16th and 17th centuries. We thought this can't happen in the 20th century. It did. Zionism is a very late project of its kind. So the fact that now not only is Israel supported by the EU, by UK, by US, of course, mainly by the US, but also supported by other countries, the whole West, and some of its clients are supporting it. Every right-wing government in the world supports Israel. Every anti-Semitic country supports Israel. But also they are defending it and paying for the destruction of Palestine and the killing of the Palestinians. Only last week, $14 billion were added to the $8 billion that Israel was already getting this year by a vote of the Congress and the Senate. This is incredible. This is more than the rest of the world gets together from the Americans. So we're talking about something that started so small and miserable that, the Palestinians were not even worried about it for a while until they realized that the British are there to support the project. And of course, the British supported it, and the US supports it, and EU supports it now because it works for them. They've said it so many times that this is their foothold in the Middle East. And American politicians have described Israel as, a warship in the Mediterranean. The whole Israel is basically an American warship in the Mediterranean. So that's why they're supporting it. They're not supporting it because they're admirers of Zionism. It works for them. It works to actually subjugate anyone in the Middle East that tries to act against the West. So I want to come to my last part. Every Israeli now is supporting the war. Why not? If most Americans do, if most countries of the West, not the people themselves, but their leadership is supporting genocide and ethnic cleansing in the full light of day, why should the Israelis not support it? So I want to explain why the shock after the 7th of October was so deep. What we're looking at is a study from 2016, so it's no longer accurate, and I'll point out where the inaccuracy is. This is, I don't know if you can read this, but this is political parties, Knesset, governments, media, police, Supreme Court, president, and the IDF. And you can see that this is arranged in such a way that the IDF is the only body which is supported by a majority of bigger than 80%. So why are Israelis not supporting political parties here at the top, and they're all supporting the IDF? And even 41% then in 2016 of the Arab population, this is Jewish, this is Arabs. Blue is the Jewish, 41% are the Palestinians, which in this racist reckoning, they are called Arabs. They're not called Palestinians, yeah? But I've just copied it. Now, the reason for that is very simple. The biggest club in Israel, which everybody almost is a member of, all the Jews, men and women, and some of the Palestinians, like, two groups, the Druze and the Bedouins, are drafted into the army. So this is a huge club. It's not just the 500,000 people who are now killing Palestinians in Gaza and around, or in the West Bank, but it's also a lot of people who have not been recruited because they're too old, etc. So we're talking about millions of people that are going through that army over the years, and that army is what made Israel what it is. And it's clear that Israelis are not supporting any other institution like they're supporting the army, because they are all members. They are all made. They were made by, this is what my book is about, how the army in 1948 has made a nation, and a nation, after all, is made of people. So all these people are part of a nation, which is a nation of soldiers, a bit of modern Sparta, if you will. And now I'm coming to a conclusion, because I don't have enough time to do all what I plan to do. I want to talk about what we can do, and that's very important. We have to do some very important simple things, but all of us have to do that. We have to very closely follow BDS to the letter, not just BDS against the settlements, but BDS against Israel, because Israel is basically the boss of the settlements. It sent the people there, it defends those settlements, and it defends them when they attack the Palestinians. So if you are attacking the settlements, but not the government of Israel, you are attacking not the criminal, but his dog. And that is, of course, nonsensical. We have to totally oppose the Western capitalist program of wars everywhere. The war in Ukraine, the expansion of NATO, the war in Palestine, the war in Yemen, the coming war in Taiwan, the coming war in Iran, the coming conflict with China that the West is cooking. The West lives on selling arms and selling conflict. China is exporting, the biggest country on earth, is exporting less than Israel in terms of arms. Just imagine, the biggest country on earth exports less arms than the smallest, or almost the smallest country, yeah? The West is a militarized power of capitalism. And to achieve its aims, it will destroy all of us. It will destroy the planet where we have to live. It will destroy the environment. It will destroy the animals, the seas, and it will destroy itself in the process. So to fight for Palestine, and this is so important that people understood it everywhere, to fight for Palestine is to fight for the future, for the rights of all of us. And Palestine is, if you want, a semblance of what it is to fight for survival. The Palestinians are fighting as an example for the rest of us. And I'm saying this as an Israeli Jew and an anti-Zionist to you, and I don't think I need to persuade you very much. Then that means that we have to fight against the Israeli, UK, US, European military industries, to boycott them, to make them impossible to continue operations, etc. We have to boycott and oppose every sort of exchange with Israeli institutions, not with individuals, with institutions. This is the message of the BDS. We have to develop, this is the end, we have to develop links with progressive groups across the whole spectrum of political activity. I mean, Black and Asian and Muslim and environmental, the trade unions, LGBTQ, anti-war, anti-capitalist, feminist, etc. Everyone which is fighting for human rights of any kind, anywhere, has to be with us in the support of the rights of the Palestinians. And I think we need, of course, to fight and to reverse and to decolonize Palestine in order to allow the people of Palestine to live in peace, security, and justice. And my last sentence is, I am one of the supporters of the one democratic state in the whole of Palestine for all its citizens, from the river to the sea. This is the original program of the PLO, and it is supported by the Palestinians in both sides and outside of Palestine, and it's supported by progressive Jews that are now coming to support the Palestinians, like Jews who were progressive supported the ANC in South Africa. I thank you for listening, and I'm very happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Haim, for the rich and informative talk. It has definitely brought many questions here in the chat. So allow me first to go back to the beginning of your talk, when you introduced yourself and said that back in the days there was not so much involved in this anti-Zionist movement. But nowadays there is a growing sense that we are living through a transformative moment. The unprecedented increasing pro-Palestinian sentiment around the world is delivering a powerful message that the colonizing powers and their institutions can be and will be, and probably is being held accountable. Do you believe in that as a factual, and we are living through this transformative moment?
I have no doubt. I think this is the most important question to ask and also to answer. I have no doubt that in an amazingly short time, since the beginning of October, the movement to support Palestine has grown more than in the last 20 years of the BDS. Because, as I said, it represents so much for the people everywhere that people are joining it. People can see that this is a crime. People don't need lawyers to tell them that this is genocide. Now, what does it mean that I think that? Do I think, am I optimistic? You know, do I think that we are going to see a very quick change? I don't. We need to be prepared for a long struggle, because South Africa was not supported with the venom that Israel is supporting by the West. It wasn't supported at all by the West in comparison to Israel. So to undermine the Western support will take a long time, and we need all of you, all of us, everyone in each country to join the BDS, to join the resistance, to think 7 times before they buy something that might be from Israel, to follow all the rules and regulations. And even that will take a very long time. But I would be not active politically if I thought that that's not possible. Saying that it's very difficult is not saying that it's impossible. And the proof of it is the growth of the movement since the 7th of October. And all the lies and propaganda that was spouted by Israeli Hasbara is not persuading people, is not successful. So I think we are not at the end of the beginning. So we're not at the beginning of the end, like Churchill put it, but we are at the end of the beginning. We are now a global movement across the globe, clear about the crime that Israel is committing, and we need to become the dominant voice. We need to change our governments. You in Sweden have a difficult task. We in Britain have a difficult task. And Palestinians and progressive Jews and their supporters in the US have the most difficult task, but we all must do it.
Because the struggle of Palestinians is the struggle for all of us, basically. And you have mentioned also the role of the BDS movement. And you have also mentioned how Germany is becoming aggressively pro-Israeli state. Now, in Germany and other European countries, there are suggestions and laws being implemented to make the support for BDS illegal. How could young academics work within such an environment?
I think we have no choice but to work in this environment as we find it and change the environment as we change people. Changing people is changing the environment. I'm in my mid-70s, and if I thought that we couldn't do it, I would give up, you know. I've been an activist all my life, and I'm not going to give it up. And Palestinians can't give it up. People in Gaza cannot give it up. And we can't give it up also because it's our freedom. As you pointed out, now our freedom is delimited. Imagine Germany, people that have destroyed 100 million Europeans and others in 2 world wars. This is the Germany we're talking about, is now telling me that I'm anti-Semitic. You know, they destroyed my family. They've destroyed families all across Europe. And now they are the judges of who is anti-Semitic and who is racist. Now, how mad is that? And they are telling us that Palestinians don't have a right to exist, the Germans. They should just shut up. And we should make them shut up. We should remind them to go back into the hole they came out of. I think this is incredible that Germany is telling us about human rights and also telling Jews what they should support and what they shouldn't support. Now, let me ask, what is so Jewish about genocide? What is so Jewish about ethnic cleansing? What is so Jewish about occupying and destroying people for over 100 years? What is Jewish about it? There's nothing Jewish about it. There's nothing Christian about it. There's nothing Islamic about it. This is just genocide. It's against humanity, and all humans should fight it. So I'm not worried by Germany and its position. I'm enraged by it. I will fight it with all the power and energy that I have, and I suggest that you should do the same.
This takes us probably to a personal question. Given that you were born in Israel, where the system over there indoctrinates people about Zionism, how were you able to unlearn what you have learned about Zionism just by growing up in that environment?
I want to correct you. I wasn't born in Israel. Both my parents survived Auschwitz, met in Italy after the war in 1945. They knew each other before the war. They looked for each other. They miraculously found each other. And I was born in a refugee camp in Rome. And being born in a refugee camp makes you understand refugees, I'm sure. And not only that, when we came to Israel, my father was one of the first, if not the first, who refused to serve in the army. We came in 1948 during the war, and he refused to join the army, and he was put in jail. And after 2 months in jail, they told him he will never get out, and he agreed to join the army as an unarmed medic, but he refused to carry arms, and he just saved lives. So that's my family. We lived in Jabalia, which is part of Jaffa, in a house, in a flat that Palestinians were expelled from. Like everyone around us were survivors of the Holocaust and survivors of the Nakba. It was a little town of survivors living in the homes of those who were expelled by force in 1948. As a child, I spoke Arabic because all my friends around spoke Arabic. There were children whose first language was Arabic, and children that the first language was Hebrew. That's how I grew up. I came there as a baby of 2, and I grew up together with Palestinian children. So when I grew up and went to the army, despite the fact that I wasn't happy about it, because at 18, I wasn't formed enough as a human being to resist and say, I'll rather go to jail than go to the army, like my father before me did. I didn't know that at the time, by the way. I only learned about it later on, after I was in the army. I didn't have the, if you want, the backbone to say, no, I don't want to go to the army. I went to the army, and I was in the war of 1967 as an officer. And what I saw there, and let me say to anyone that might ask, I have never killed or harmed a person in my life. What I saw in that war persuaded me that we can't do that. We cannot do this. After what people did to Jews, why would Jews do this to others? That's my simple answer. Why would Jews do such a horrible, just create misery for millions of Palestinians after what happened to them and to their families? We should not ever do that.
Thank you for that clarification and for sharing your personal story, Professor Haim. Given the last graph that you showed and the support for the IDF, that it's still with the large, the majority of the people supports the IDF, would it be possible to have this shift inside the Israeli community to ask similar questions that you asked yourself before?
I don't know. I want to be very clear about this. I can't see the future. What I can see is where we can work to weaken the support of Israel, and we must do that. I think that Israel is a very divided country. You all are aware that by the 6th of October, before the attack, Israel was never as divided as it was then. After 10 months of fighting a very terrifying government, but the people who fought the government themselves are racist. The nice pilots that went in the streets with the nice tank commanders that went in the streets against Netanyahu are now killing the babies of Gaza with the latest arms. So now everyone is behind Netanyahu because everyone supports the army, as I explained. And, this will not last. Netanyahu will be gone as soon as possible after the war. What will happen then is the rift in the Israeli society will continue to develop. I believe empires fall from within. from their internal contradictions, not from without. The pressure from without that we need to apply will decide the timing. The more pressure we apply, the faster it will happen. But Israel is now in a terminal state of Zionism. It is a 19th century project, and we're living in the 21st century. And there's no place for it. And most of the people in this audience, like most of the people in the world, understand this. There's no place for a racist state in Palestine where the belief of three large, huge religious communities, all three which are claiming that peace is what they want, there is no place for Palestine, such an important country for billions of people in the world, is ruled by racism, injustice, brutality. We can win that. If the Israelis change their mind, they will also win. If they don't, they would lose, because the rest of society, the rest of the international community will enforce a just peace in Palestine, because it has become impossible to continue and support the war crimes that Israel is continuously carrying out.
Professor Haim, thank you so much for the insightful talk and all the information you shared with us. We were very honored to have you.